It's daybreak, day 10, and it's a nice, cold, frosty morning. It's downright nice this morning. Get a little heat on the subject in here this morning. Crank up the old buddy heater here and take the chill off a little bit. Clinton buddy's probably texting me already. Yep. And my brother, he's out having his coffee in his shooting house this morning out on the farm that he hunts. We're both having a good morning, good start, good coffee. You know, yesterday we were talking about Solunar periods. And we touch on that a little bit more today. Like I said, on a normal day, you're going to have 2 major and 2 minor Solunar periods. We can have a tendency, because of the word major, we can have a tendency just to put too much emphasis on the major and ignore the minor periods. Well, that can be a mistake. The minor periods can have just as good a fishing or just as good a deer movement as can a major. The difference is length of time. Now, when it comes to fishing, regardless of whether it's a major or a minor period, usually the activity of the fish is a very short period of time within that Solunar period. Usually good fish movement only lasts a matter of minutes, but those minutes are going to occur within the Solunar period of time, generally speaking. So I said you'd be out on the lake and the fishermen are sitting around fishing, no Solunar period's on. Solunar period comes on and boy, they get active, they're running around the lake, they're going to the docks, or getting something to quit fishing, start eating, or whatever. And then the fish are active and feeding, and then when the fish activity's over, the fishermen go back to fishing. They're never aware that there was a really good fish. The fish were biting, and they were never aware of. They only biting for a short period of time, and the fishermen just simply weren't there. Well, when it comes to deer, we all know that there's a typical or a normal, let's put it that way, early morning and late afternoon movement or period for deer to be out and about and feeding and what have you, to be active. And when you get a Solunar period that coincides with that early morning, late afternoon normal meeting or movement period, you're likely to have an even better movement period than if there was no Solunar period that coincided with it. Now, you also got to take in consideration the type of hunting you're doing, what you're doing. Like now, I'm hunting the farm here, and I'm hunting primarily, this is a feeding situation. I'm hunting primarily a feeding situation. I've got the pastures here's got clover in them, and deer love clover, so they'll come out to that. Plus I've got a food plot planted up here with oats and turnips and whatever in it, and it's a feeding situation. So typically early morning, late afternoon is going to be better times here at the Quigley because I'm hunting over a feeding situation. Now, when the when the rut gets full blown, you're allowed to catch them out here during those feeding periods, early morning, late afternoon. But you can also, when the rut is full blown, the urge to breed takes precedence over everything. So you're liable to catch them out here in the middle of the day or anything else crossing these fields or lollygagging around these fields or chasing does around these fields. They're chasing does around all over the place, and they just happen to be out in the fields. If the field gets in their way, I reckon, and they run out in it. But you'll catch them out here in the fields. You're likely to catch them out here any time of the day. But you will also see much more rutting activity during the solar period. So if you got a solar period occurring up in the middle of the day and the rut is on, for heaven's sake, stay with it. I talked before about the people that hunt all day, that hunt in the middle of the day, that their success ratio is so much higher than hunters that just hunt morning and afternoons. Well, if I was being normal, for me, I'd be up in the big woods camped and still hunting. In other words, I'm moving around. I'm not hunting a feeding situation up there in the mountains. I'm spending my time still hunting around, slipping around, moving quietly and slowly and quietly around through prime loafing and bedding areas. In other words, I'm spending my time in the middle of the day where the deer normally are spending most of their time. I'm not trying to wait them out, catch them coming out here to feed. I'm going to where they live. So I'm slipping around in there. And those activity periods, solar periods and what have you, in the middle of the day can be super productive if you're hunting loafing and bedding areas. Because that deer may get up, he may just get up to stretch his legs and turn around and lay back down, but you'll see that movement. Or he may go 50 yards to get a drink or something. There might be very little movement, but you're right in the areas where that movement could occur. And the object of still hunting is you're slipping around. You keep in mind that what you're trying to do is find bedded bucks. You're looking for bedded bucks. So you're going slowly and you're looking for bedded bucks. A buck that's up and moving is naturally it's going to catch your eye. If you're looking for bedded bucks, any movement, you're going to zero in on that quickly. So there is a big difference in you going to the deer in their loafing and bedding areas as you are, as opposed to, like I'm doing here, sitting out here waiting over a feeding situation. That's what's so unusual for me is usually the first part of my season, we go up and camp in the big woods and all that stuff, and I'm out hunting those bedding areas. I'm not doing that now, and it's just all feeding areas. And until the rut gets cranked up, it can be lots of hours spent watching empty fields, particularly hours during the middle of the day when they're just not normally out there. But so there is a difference in whether you are hunting, you're going to the deer, you're going into their bedding areas, you're going into their bedroom, you're actively looking for them, or if you're sitting out here waiting for them to go to breakfast or supper, okay? Big difference. So your solar periods will be active. The deer may be active during a solar period during the middle of the day, but they're active where they're at. They may be a little bit active where they are in their loafing and bedding areas, not the feeding areas so much. So right now it's all feeding area, which is different to me. Whereas it's just different. And it's so the middle of the day, even though I've shot a lot of bucks in the middle of the day, and I expect that I can shoot bucks during, and I expect and do shoot bucks during the middle of the day, even here at the farm, hunting so-called, hunting more of a feeding area, but generally that does not occur until the rut is full blown. Well, the rut normally gets full blown around here starting on the teen days. Well, this is 13th. This is the first of the teen days, but so it could get started. It could get started here anytime. Now, yesterday morning, the movement that I saw of the does and the little buck that come right here through quickly, that was during a minor Solunar period in the early morning. Minor Solunar period, early morning. And I just stayed here during that dead time between the Solunar periods, and I stayed here for most of the major Solunar period during the mid-morning or late morning and midday. There's nothing, it's dead as a hammer. But had I been hunting the big woods, slipping around through it, boy, I'd been on my toes during that midday hours. But out here, I mean, on the feeding area, there's nothing. There was absolutely nothing. So you got to take into consideration how you're hunting and where you're hunting. And speaking of that, I don't know if anybody ever watched any of my fishing videos, but I'm always stressing Buck Perry spoon plugging or method of fishing, and it's a total system of fishing, but you're structure fishing. Now, a lot of people use the word structure, and they use it erroneously. They don't even know what structure is. But I'm talking about structure as defined by the father of structure fishing, Buck Perry. What structure is and how fish relate to it. Well, you would be absolutely amazed at the similarities between, let's say, largemouth bass and whitetail bucks. But that's logical. Same creator. So all life, virtually all life, consists of similarities and differences. So, but there are very many similarities between fish, or let's say bass, largemouth bass, and a whitetail buck. So if you've watched any of most of my fishing videos, you see I'm trolling. Now, I'm not just haphazardly running around all over the lake. I am trolling specific places at specific depths. I've got a purpose. I'm trolling specific underwater features, specific structures, and I'm trolling them where I expect the fish to be moving. And when I'm deer hunting, and I'm out here cruising around through the woods, I say the typical terminology for the way I hunt is called still hunt. But I refer to it as trolling for bucks. So that's exactly what I'm doing. When I'm out there in the woods, I look around and I say to myself, if this place was covered with water, and I was fishing, where would I fish? On these ridges and hollers and mountains and all stuff. This was covered with water. A lot of territory out here. A lot of territory out there. But if I was fishing, where would I be fishing? In other words, I got to narrow all this down. It's a big old mountain. You got to narrow it down to where you want to hunt. Well, if it was covered with water, and if I was fishing, then I'd fish this area through here. Guess what? White-tailed deer use the exact same areas that fish do. White-tailed deer relate to structure just like fish do. So if I was fishing, and this mountain was covered with water, and I was fishing, I will be fishing right around through this area. You know what? When I go to hunt to them bucks, I'm trolling. I'm easing around through the woods right through here as if I was fishing. And the deer use the same areas in the same way that fish would use it if it was underwater. I find that very interesting, but not surprising, since they were the largemouth bass and the whitetail deer buck was created by the same creator. It's absolutely amazing, the similarities and the differences. But I just thought I'd throw that in, that I'm not trolling for bucks now. I'm just sitting here waiting on specific spots, and I mean at a feeding area. So that's kind of a limited way of of hunting. If it's like fishing, if I just went out and found the spot that the fish normally gonna feed in, and I just park my carcass right there, and I just sit right there, and I just fish in the area that the fish will feed when they're just biting, let's say, and my success is going to be very limited. But if I'm flexible and I get out and I'm trolling around through the whole area that I expect them to be, then I'm going to run across them much more often than if I was just sitting waiting on the fish to come to a specific spot. So that's exactly how I deer hunt. I go out I go out in the woods and I say, if this was covered with water, where would the fish be related to? Where would they be along this ridge, say? Where would they be? What places would they be? And I go and I move through those areas just as if I was in a boat, if that was covered with water. I'm covering this specific sections of this ridge or this valley or this whatever, that particular structure. I'm fishing specific areas along the structure, along the mountain, whatever. And where, if that was covered with water, where there would be fish, where there would be largemouth bass, that's the same areas that the bucks will use to loaf and to bed up in. So I am trolling through the bucks loafing and bedding areas. So my chances of running upon him are greater than if I'm sitting in one specific spot, a feeding area, waiting on him to come to me. So I love to steel hunt, and I have totally missed that this year. I mean, I haven't done any of it. None of it. But here in the next week or two, I'd like to go up to the bigger farm that I have access to, and I'm going to still hunt around on it a little bit. But so far, all of my hunting so far have been just feeding areas. Now, let's compare yesterday to today. There was a Solunar period that, as of yesterday, at this time yesterday, ended about this time yesterday, and there was some deer activity. Well, this morning, another minor period occurring in the morning, and it's roughly about 50 minutes or so later than what the one yesterday was, but it's been going. The minor Solunar period's been going here for about an hour now, or getting close to an hour, and it will end. It'll end in about 30 minutes. That minor Solunar period. So far, I have not seen a thing today. So they were active here, feeding here, yesterday, during a minor Solunar period, and that was all. And they showed up again late in the afternoon for the next minor Solunar period. They used 2 minor periods yesterday, early and late, and they did not do anything during the middle of the day. But if you're fishing and or hunting, if you have a movement period early, whether it's a Solunar period or not. But like yesterday, I had Solunar periods early and late, and in the middle of the day. I had a minor in the morning, a minor in the afternoon, and a major during the middle of the day. If there is a movement of fish, or if there's a movement of deer early, generally speaking, don't expect a movement during the middle of the day. If they will generally move a couple of times during the day, fish or deer. And if there is a movement early in the day, they won't be one generally during the middle of the day. But if there is no movement of deer or fish during that early morning period, then it would probably behoove you not to leave the lake or not to leave your deer stand during the middle of the day, because there is a high likelihood that there will be a movement during the middle of the day. But yesterday, there was a movement early and late. During the middle of the day, there's nothing. Today, so far, I have seen nothing moving here. However, there is movement at my brother's stand. That's what he's texting me there, that he's seeing some bucks at his stand. So he's seeing movement there. So there is movement this morning. It may not be occurring here. I may not be seeing them here, but there is movement this morning, so there's not likely to be much of a movement during the middle of the day, unless, of course, the rut's getting big old fox squirrels up there moving out across the fields. Sun's creeping its way down toward the Quigley. I got the heater in here going, warmed it up. It's a cold, cold morning. But it is nice in here this morning. So even though I'm not out trolling the woods for deer, which is my favorite way to hunt, it is nice to sit here in the Quigley and with all the comforts of home, you might say. Anyway, it's nice. So I'm going to quit yakking and sit here and watch the fields for a while. Well, it's certainly been a uneventful morning. Not a turkey, not a deer, absolutely nothing has shown up in the field. When you're just hunting a food source, which is what I'm hunting here, I mean, you're just sitting and waiting. That can be very challenging sometimes. Challenging to your patience anyway. Whereas if you're hunting on the move, you're still hunting, slipping around through the woods, in where they live, in their bedding and loafing ground, you could come upon one any second. Likelihood of that's high. When you're just sitting and waiting on them to come to a food source, which is the way most people hunt, that is a waiting game that can try your patience sometimes. Whereas if you're in there loafing in bed there and you're easing around, I mean, you're not bored, you're not going to sleep or anything. Because every step you take, your view changes. Everything changes with every step. Any one step, one more step can make all the difference in the world. Watching a food source, given enough time, can certainly pay off, but you gotta stay with it. right now, though, nothing showed up early this morning, so I certainly don't expect much in the middle of the day. So, but I will keep an eye out just in case. But I'll be back this afternoon. But for a while, my buddy Gary, my handicapped buddy, we've been trying to get to go deer hunting this year. He's in the hospital here. We got to go visit with him and his wife today for sure. We're not going to give up. We're still hoping to get him back in the woods, get him a little hunting in this year that he hadn't been able to do in 12 years. So. Anyway, I'm going to leave quickly while I go visit my buddy. Well, day 10 of a 14-day early muzzleloader season is about to wind down. Only a few more minutes of shooting hours left. And I never saw a thing all day until about an hour ago. We've done a couple of big flocks of turkeys and 3 deer up here on the hill. I have not laid eyes on a buck yet today. If I'm going to see one day, he's going to have to hurry. He's going to have to hurry for sure. It is getting late. Whitey, little sister and mom are slowly working their way down here closer to the Quigley. Boy, those 3 are regulars. Well, I reckon this is the first day that I haven't seen some sort of buck in some time. Like I said before, around here, the teen days usually sees quite a bit of buck activity. Well, today's the 13th, first of the teen days, and I've yet to see a buck. 3 regulars are here. They're standing right there in front of the Quigley. I could about spit on them. Lordy. Come back tomorrow, I reckon. Daybreak on day 11 of the early muzzleloader season. It's cold in here, so I'm going to fire up the heater. Put a little heat on the subject this morning. Well, since the subscriber, viewer asked about elaborate on the Solunar period, I'll kind of keep track of that for a while. Now, this is early morning. Been out here since before daylight. And like I said, the farm here is a feeding situation. I mean, you're not out trying to find the deer on their own. You're not moving around. In other words, you're passive. You're not active. if you're out still hunting like I normally do through the big woods, through the bedding grounds and all that, then you're active. You're actively looking for the deer. But here at the farm, it's like most people deer hunt these days. They hunt over a food source. Well, the farm itself, the fields, are a food source. They've got various grasses and weeds and what have you, but they got clover. Clovers are very good, attractive for deer. And I planted a food plot for the first time this year. First time ever I've had a food plot. So what we're hunting over is a feeding situation. Like I said, I've been out here since before daylight. It's now 7:15. The sun is on the ridges up here. It's not worked its way down here in the valley to the Quigley yet, but it's shining up here on the ridge. And so it's been daylight for over an hour. And I haven't seen a thing moving in these fields. But the Solunar period, a minor Solunar period, will start at 7:45 and go to 9:15. So I will stay out here until at least the 9:15. We'll see what if there any activity at all, whether it be in the Solunar period or out of the Solunar period. We're going to give it a whirl, but so far, early this morning, there has been absolutely nothing in these fields. No turkeys, no deer, no does, no bucks, no nothing. So let's wait a little while and see what the Solunar period might hold for us. I hope a little more than what this pre-Solunar period time period this morning has not shown us. Well, the sun finally got down here, cleared the mountain enough to get down here and start shining on the Quigley. And it feels good. It's cold more. That where it's got glass all the way around the Quigley. If the sun shines, it really helps warm it up in here a lot. Feels good. But about that buck and that doe that came charging across the field right by the house. Now, the Solunar periods are something that I follow that absolutely works. I mean, it absolutely works. There is more wildlife and fish activity during a Solunar period, whether a major or a minor period, than there is outside of a period. No two ways about that. If you'll subscribe or get the app or buy the booklet or whatever, to where you can follow the Solunar periods, and if you do it, you'll find out that there's more activity during a Solunar period than there is outside it. But it's just coincidence that this buck and this doe showed up the minute that the Solunar period started. I mean, they come charging across the field. The Solunar period is at 7:45, and at 7:45, 7:46, boom, here they come flying across the field. Well, I mean, game and fish can be and are active, of course, outside of a Solunar period. It just means they're likely to be more active at that time. So this buck and this doe didn't just bam, just like that, become active because the Solunar period started. They were already active, and it just happened. It just coincidence that I looked out there, and as soon as the Solunar period started, whoop, across the field they went. I mean, that was just coincidence. And I haven't seen anything else, any other movement, either before the solar period started or since the solar period started. The solar period's been going about 15 minutes now. Now, typically, when the solar period starts, the activity period starts, it starts with the smaller critters first. So say like birds, Tweety birds and stuff like that, they'll become a little more active. The smaller fish will become a little more active. And then as the activity period picks up, the larger critters, the larger animals and stuff become a bit more active. It's not just bam, turns on just like that, but they get more active. The bigger animals get more active. Like you see cattle, like I heard farm, you'll see cattle laying around in the field. The solar period comes on. Well, just the second the solar period comes on don't necessarily mean they're going to get up and start feeding. But you better believe that shortly after that solar period gets started, they'll all be up and feeding. You won't see cattle, a herd of cattle laying in the field when the solar period's gone. You absolutely won't see that. I've been following that for 50 years. I've never seen cattle laying down in the field when the solar period's going on. But anyway, where that buck and that doe showed up, that it was just coincidence that they showed up right then. But this is the 14th, and like I said, here in our part of the country, the teen days and the 20, the teen days and the 20s are generally the peak of the rutting activity. And like I said, when you're hunting here at the farm, you're hunting a feeding situation. You're sitting here waiting on something to come out to feed. Well, that activity there was not feeding activity. That was rutting activity. And once the rut gets in full swing, like it usually is in the teens and 20s, you are likely to see a buck out here at any time. Solar period or no solar period. I mean, early morning, late afternoon, midday, it doesn't matter. You're likely to see a deer at any time, a buck at any time. Like I've said before, they generally don't live here. They just come through. And you better be ready, because when they come out here in these fields, generally speaking, they don't lollygag around. They're crossing the fields. And if you're not ready, when you see that buck, you've got to make up your mind right then and there whether you're going to try to take him or not, and you better try to get your shot off, because most likely you've only got seconds, not minutes. You've got seconds to get on that, to get that shot. Oftentimes you've got less than a minute. If you've got 2 or 3 minutes, that's a long time, generally speaking. So that's one reason that I want to plant a food plot up there. If they're out there, they'll give you time to look at him, give time to get aim at him. But so far, they have used the food plot, but not that much. I mean, they're in there. I've seen good bucks in it. And a little bit earlier in the season, there was 3 pretty good bucks in that food plot. And I elected to pass on them because it was right at the very first of the season. I'm beginning to question the wisdom of that decision right now, because yesterday I saw nothing. And so far today I've seen 1 small buck chasing a doe. But like I said, I mean, season's early. I mean, we've got about 3 more days, I reckon. Yeah, 3 more days of the early muzzleloader season, and then the regular firearms season starts. And right after that closes, the muzzleloader season reopens again. So I got plenty of time. But the prime time is starting right now, and for probably the next couple of weeks or so is when you really better keep your eyes peeled and keep looking. So that's the prime time when you are likely to catch something out here in the field. But like that buck, when that little buck chasing this doe, I saw the movement. I saw the deer. Saw two deer. Picked up my binoculars, and when I got my binoculars on the doe in front, she disappeared down, actually behind my storage building, right there at the. They were coming right by my backyard, and she disappeared right there. And then I determined that the second deer was a buck, a small buck, and then he's right on her heels. So when I first saw them, I mean, you see two deer movements. I grabbed my binoculars, and when I looked through my binoculars, I got to see that doe probably 2 seconds. The buck I saw less than 10 seconds. That's all the view I got of it. If I hadn't just looked around and looked out that window at that time, I wouldn't have seen him at all. At any rate, I just wanted to clarify the fact that, I mean, just because I saw that buck at the minute that the solar period started, that didn't really have anything to do with the solar period. They were already active. The rut is what had them active. The urge to breed is what had them active. And they just happened to cross that field right there just when the solar period started. And I just happened to look around and catch them crossing that field, because like I said, they were only in that field a matter of few seconds. If I hadn't been looking at it, I'd never seen it. So I hope we're keep a sharp eye out here. Whitey and her baby sister and her mama, 3 skinheads, just stepped out up here, out of the woods just below the food plot. So that, whatever doe that buck was chasing was not one of them. It's different, because they're just out there. They're not even in the food plot. They're this pretty good patch of clover right there, and they're feeding on the clover right now. They're not even in the food plot at all. They're still feeding on clover, but they're feeding. They're not showing any rutting activity at all, or signs of rut at all. But that one little buck, he was hot after that doe. But where these 3 does just stepped out, that's kind of typical of a solar period. Solar period's been going on now for let's see, 32 minutes. Not quite halfway through the solar period. They come out and just feed them. That's typical. That's kind of typical activity during the solar period. So that's normal. That's about what you can generally expect. Now, the food plot is right there. I mean, that's the food plot. It's lush. And yet these 3 does are not feeding on food plot, in food plot at all. They're feeding on clover. There's a spring just to the right of those 2 deer, and they've been feeding in that clover rather than the food plot. But as a biologist we talked to years ago when we first come out here to farm, he said people plant all this stuff and everything. He said, but the best attractor you can get is clover. And especially after the frost has hit the clover a few times. So they're out here actively feeding on clover, walking right by that big old lush food plot. So those little does they're feeding down here, working their way toward the quigley. They're not in clover down there, they're in the weeds and what have you that might be growing along that creek right there in the edge of the woods. They're working their way toward the Quigley because this is just a natural crossing. It's just a natural place for them to come through. But the fact is, they have not touched the food plot. That rascal sitting there feeding. What is she feeding on anyway? There's a lot of browse in there. Lots of browse. That's what they're after. Getting up here. Big, thick browse. They're getting right into it right now. They're going. It gets thick. Browse gets really thick up in here. That's where they're heading. Feeding on browse. They'll probably come out in this other field. There comes her baby sister. Where Whitey's taking them off to. Little baby sister stopped in the clover, but Whitey went right on through it. Actually, Whitey's coming right toward me. Coming right to the Quigley. Of course, Quigley's got clover all around it. So. They're coming right here, leaving Mom behind. There's two sisters. Little's this year and Whitey's at least 3 or 4 years old. I think she's 4 years old. That Whitey there has stayed with its mom. I think 4 years ago, she was the fawn of the year. Mama's trying to figure out how they went over in the field. So she'll go over in a minute. She's got to figure out where she wants to cross the fence. Go up there to a low gap in it. I think she's probably going to crawl under it instead of jump over it. But the other two decided to go up there with her. They joined her. Wait a minute, boy, they're all skedaddling up the hill. What are they running from? I better keep my eye peeled here. Well, the Solunar period is ended. Minor Solunar period ended. And, of course, the normal early morning activity period's long since passed. But during the normal, real early morning, first hour or so of daylight, there was nothing. There was no activity at all. Then the Solunar period come along, minor Solunar period. And about 20 minutes into the Solunar period, deer come out and they were very active, all dozed. At the beginning, the very beginning of the Solunar period, like I said, a small buck come chasing a doe right through my backyard. But the Solunar period didn't have anything to do with that. That was rutting activity. But the other deer, the skinheads, the does, they come out and they fed around all over the place and going about their normal business, typically for a Solunar period. And during that whole time, the birds, Tweety birds, songbirds, and everything, crows, hawks, everything else was extremely busy. The farmers working alive with bird activity. Solunar period ended, and not a bird to be seen. Quiet. There's just no. I hear a chipmunk. Chirping off in the distance somewhere. That's the only wildlife that I see or hear at all. It's as dead as a hammer. So, my handicapped buddy that we were working all summer to try to get to where he could go do a bit of deer hunting this year. He hadn't been in 12 years. He's worked hard, and we've worked hard to get him to where he could go back and actually maybe get him a deer this year. And I mean, dadgum, just about the time the season gets to open up, he has other problems. And right now he's in the hospital, and they're trying to find out what's wrong with it. It's not the paralyzed thing. That's not it. It's something else. So he's in the hospital now, and they're trying to figure that out. So Diane and I are going to go down to the hospital and visit with him and his wife for a while. So I'm going to close up the quickly and head toward the house. There's nothing going on out here anyway. So might be back this afternoon.